Greetings builders! Have you tried many builds on Crucible? Today I'm gonna share with you 3 of my favorite Crucible builds, and I'm sure at least one of them is going to spark your interest. When you decide the one you wanna try, you can find the links for the PoE and complete guide in the video description. Let's start our list with a freezing cold archer, the Ice Shot Deadeye with the Ranger class. This build uses one of my favorite skills in the whole game. It counts with an amazing clear speed and boss damage. To list the pros of this build, I'm going to talk exactly about that. This build is able to clear maps in less than a minute and kill big bosses in less than a second. Above all, it's also not complicated to put together. Now to list the cons, I would start with its cost. Because of Lion Ice Fall, this build is quite expensive right now. The price of this deal already dropped a lot, but it's still expensive. About the budget, as I just mentioned, it's an expensive build right now. You need around 5 divine orbs to put it together. Don't forget that on PoEbuilds.net you can find a list with all the equipments that you need to buy for this build, with direct links for examples being sold by other players. You only need 2 mandatory unique items for this build. The first of course is the Lion Ice Fall Jewel that grants many useful nodes on our passive tree. Next, we also need a Yoke of Suffering amulet that causes all of your elemental damage to shock. This way our enemies take a lot more damage. For clear speed, I'll give it 10 out of 10. You fire many projectiles with high attack speed, and those projectiles return to you, piercing enemies, bouncing off walls, and you even have your mirrored archer to fire more projectiles. No one can survive that. The boss damage is also amazing and deserves 10 out of 10. Using the incredibly strong Val Ice Shot plus your ballistas on bosses will kill them super fast. For the survivability, I'll give this build 9 out of 10. You have armor, evasion and spell suppression that grants almost 50,000 effective HP, but the main reason why this build is safe is because you can kill everything from a huge distance. You just need to mind your position. Next, we have one for the minion lovers out there, the Poison Raging Spirit's Guardian with the Templar class. This build takes advantage of the high number of Raging Spirits you can summon to stack an absurd amount of poison on our enemies. To list the pros of this build, I would start with its boss damage. Once the build is complete, you are going to kill even the biggest bosses in just a few seconds. The survivability is also amazing, since we can have all the defensive layers of a Guardian on a minion build that is already very safe to play. Now to list the cons, I would start saying that this build isn't for everyone. You need a lot of currency to put it together. Another issue is that Raging Spirits have a short duration and you have to often stop to resummon them. As for budget, this build will need at least 10 divine orbs to put together. As I said, it's an expensive one. You need 4 mandatory unique items for this build. The first one is the Uniting Drain Sword that grants an Envy Aura for a big amount of chaos damage to our minions. It also grants them 60% chance to poison on hit. We also need the Darkness Enthroned Bell that has 2 Abyss Jewel sockets for us to achieve 100% chance to poison our minions. Next, we need a Covenant Armor that grants our Raging Spirits a level 29 added chaos damage support. This means a lot more chaos damage. Finally, we also need the Ancient Skull Helmet that grants a healed damage and attack speed boost to our minions. For clear speed, I'll give it 9 out of 10. Even though we have many fast minions that destroy everything in seconds, they have a short duration and need to be resummoned often. That's the reason why I took 1 point out. The boss damage deserves 10 out of 10. You easily end up with over 30 million DPS, that's more than enough to decimate every boss in the game. For the survivability, I'll give it 10 out of 10. As a minion build, you already stay far from danger, but with this one you also count with the many defensive layers from the Guardian Ascendancy. This grants over 100,000 effective HP. Finally, we have the amazing Nightblade Flicker Strike Raider, also with the Ranger class. This is the kind of build where you can have it all. It easily achieves over 10 million DPS, it's super tanky, and as you can see on the gameplay, ultra fast. To list the pros of this build, I'll have to pretty much repeat what I just said. This is one of the most well balanced builds I've ever played. It has super speed, damage and survivability. It also has a satisfying gameplay with explosions, and let's face it, Flicker Strike is just super cool. Now to list the cons, I'd start saying that this build isn't cheap. You need some mandatory, unique and rare items that will exceed the price of one Divine Orb. Another issue is that you have little control over your character. This might be a problem on bosses like Queen Atziri and the Shaper, where you need to know which clone to attack and mind your position. Getting to the budget, this build is expensive and not a starter. You need at least 6 Divine Orbs to put it all together. You need 3 mandatory unique items for this build. The first is the Fahul's Fur body armor, which guarantees that you always have your full frenzy charges up. Next, we also need a Yoke of Suffering amulet that causes all of our elemental damage to be able to shock enemies, causing them to take even more damage from every source. Finally, we need the Perseverance belt that turns tankness into damage. It does that, granting 1% increased damage for every 200 of the lowest between armor and evasion. Good thing that this build counts with over 30,000 of each. For clear speed, this build is surely a 10 out of 10, and I didn't even need to tell you that. Check out this gameplay, this is some serious anime swordsman stuff. The boss damage is also great, especially when you can use your Berserker skill. As you can see, it kills guardians in less than 2 seconds, but I will only give it 9 out of 10 because this damage is reduced on pinnacle bosses when it's harder to stack our rage. For the survivability, I will also give it 9 out of 10. This build has almost 200,000 effective HP, because of high armor, high evasion, 100% spell suppression, over 30% chance to block, and high chance to avoid elemental ailments. I just took one point out because it has low life regeneration, making it vulnerable to poison. And that's it guys, which one of those builds are you gonna try next? Please take a second to tell me in the comments and leave a thumbs up to support the channel. I wish you guys an amazing day, and don't forget to keep building!